Hotep, and welcome once again to another edition of Community Cop. My name is Noel Leader, one of the co-founding members of 100 Blacks in Law Enforcement Care. I'm here with my co-host, Michael Greys, aka Big Mike.
Namaste, brother.
Some people call him also the walking encyclopedia and walking history book, so many titles. But we'd like to welcome you once again, our viewing audience, to another edition of Community Cop. This is where truth and real talk occurs. And as is customary, you want to go right to our historical piece. 3 events we want to remember. The first one was the murder of Emmitt Till, which happened on August 27, 1955. Michael.
This is truly the spark of the modern civil rights movement. It was the killing, the vicious, unnecessary killing of a 14-year-old boy, a child who visited his family in Mississippi, in Money, Mississippi. He was from Chicago. He wanted to see his grandfather and some of his uncles. So his mother allowed him near the end of the summer to go there. As the story was, supposedly him and his cousins who went into a store to get some candy after a hard day's work, allegedly something was said, whether it was a whistle or whether it was a remark said to the white lady that worked in the store, something she later recanted. But at that time, she claimed that he made a smart remark at her. Consequently, her husband and her husband's brother came several days later to the Tills' house, went room to room, and in the third room, woke him up in the middle of his sleep. They had a gun out when they went into the house, and the grandfather asked what he did and said, whatever he did, I'll beat him right here, because the grandfather understood that there's a possibility he might never see his grandnephew, Emmitt, again. So, but the person told him, asked him how old he was, and he said something like, I'm 62. Said, well, shut up if you want to live to be 63. And they took Emmitt out of the house and killed him. They beat him, they tortured him, and then unfortunately, they killed him.
And as you stated, these were grown men dealing with a young child. I just wanted to point out and make the comparison. You said that Emmitt Till was from Chicago, and prior to him going down to Mississippi, he had that talk with his mother.
That's
about
correct.
How Black people are supposed to act when down south, and especially in regards to their dealings with white people. So his mother schooled him on his mannerisms. You know, being up north, he wasn't used to some of the laws and rules, of the South. But I just wanted to fast forward that today, how in 2021, African-Americans, parents have to give that same talk to their children in regards to what to do when stopped by the police. Because so often these interactions unnecessarily wind up with African-American men being killed, assaulted, falsely arrested, abused, disrespected, et cetera, et cetera. So in Money, Mississippi, Emmitt Till had to have that talk in 2021 all over the country. Black parents have to still give their children the talk about what to do when confronted by police. And I just wanted to finally say, as it relates to that, the white woman who made the accusation against Emmitt Till, who was, in bad health, probably one leg or one foot in the grave, admitted that she lied on him, that he never made any inappropriate comments towards her, and it was all a lie. So she was, one of thousands of the original Karens who make these false accusations for nothing more than the benefit, personal satisfaction of making false accusations against African Americans. Any closing comments on that?
Yes, I'll say that. Just remember that this was the real start of the modern civil rights movement, because Rosa Parks even said that it was what happened to Emmitt Till is what inspired her to take her stand in Montgomery, Alabama, what happened in Mississippi. So that is the true spark. And we also have to remember that that talk you talk about is so important. Any young person, male or female, that had to go down south to visit their parents, that was a part of it, to have that talk, because the way things were done in Chicago, New York, Philly, New Jersey is totally different than the way things are done Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, what have you. So she had that talk with him, and she said that he had a stammering problem, so he stuttered as a boy, and to recover so that he can get the words out, she taught him to whistle. And that whistle would calm him, and then he could actually say the words. So there might have been an attempt to whistle while he was asking for whatever type of candy he wanted, because if the words can't get out, he would whistle, and then his words would come back to him. So in any event, as you pointed out, Noel, she lied to her husband, knew full well what her husband was gonna do and what his brother was gonna do, and they did it and carried it out. And she knew she could have stopped it just by saying, well, he really didn't do it. He really just was trying to say something to me, and it didn't come out right.
All right, you said that this event sparked the civil rights movement. Our next incident that we like to remember is 1963 March on Washington. Michael.
Yes, this was a march on Washington for jobs and freedom. Oftentimes we forget it and we think it was just a march. It was for jobs and freedom. 18 people spoke that day, and the march is capsulized by the speech by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the I Have a Dream. Yes, he had did that before, but on that day is when most of America heard it for the first time, even though he said it in various churches, you know, over that last year. So it's done by the March on Washington. It was criticized by Malcolm, criticized by Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and many others, but they were progressive enough and principled enough to understand that the Kennedy administration was in charge and financed the march, gave them $1.5 million, the various civil rights organizations, and gave them marching orders, when to come, when to leave, and what to say. All the speeches were scrutinized. So Malcolm and Adam was right. And certainly that day is always remembered. And now you got some fake civil rights leaders that redo the march every year this time, just to be in front of a camera. But when Dr. King did it, it was for jobs and freedom, which is a big difference from what we're gonna see this weekend when you see these groups marching.
All right, then our final incident we want to remember was the unfortunate murder of a young man named Yusef Hawkins in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. This occurred on August 23rd, 1989. Michael.
Yeah, well, this one, Yusef Hawkins and his friends just went to look at a car. Unknowingly, people were waiting for him. In excess of 25 to 30 young men was waiting in that Bensonhurst area. They had previous information telling them that they were coming, but they thought it was to see a young lady, allegedly. However, he was going to look at a car. He was cornered by 25 to 30 youth, and unfortunately, at that point, he was shot and killed for absolutely no reason other than, like I said, he was looking for a car. He wasn't looking for trouble, wasn't looking to have problems with anyone. He was merely looking at a vehicle and was unjustifiably shot. And it's a little personal to me because I knew his mother. I grew up in East New York. I knew Diane, and Diane was a very nice, sweet young lady, Diane Hawkins, his mother.
Okay, so we should never forget, all three of these incidents. All right, thank you, Michael. Now we want to fast forward to today's event. One of the major topics of discussion, of course, is the coronavirus, the implementation of the vaccines, and the ramifications felt throughout not only the United States, but throughout the globe. We want to talk about, first off, on our topic of the vaccine. We want to acknowledge individuals who even came on this program to have a lengthy discussion, to Irritated Genie. We encourage all of our viewers to look at that program. You can catch it on YouTube when Irritated Genie gave a great explanation of the vaccine, the coronavirus vaccine. But recently, an attempt to explain the Republican response to the coronavirus in many Republican states. Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick attempted to blame the surge in his state's positive test cases on African Americans. He said the surge in Texas of the coronavirus is due to unvaccinated Blacks. Now, here's Lieutenant Governor who has access to all the information of the state, all the medical professionals who document the rise and the percentages on a race basis. He has access to this information, and it was proven that his accusation that the surge in coronavirus cases in the state of Texas is due to Blacks. And he specifically said that. Of course, this was on Fox News station. But the truth of the matter is, according to the Texas Health Center, Blacks make up 13% of those tested, and only 7% of them came back positive. Whites represented 18.24% of those tested. 18.7% of them came back positive, and Hispanics represent 55% of those who tested, and 56.2% of them came back positive. They said also that over 70% of the positive cases in Texas are white and Hispanics. Blacks only represent 16% of the positive cases in Texas. So his explanation that Blacks are to blame is a figment of his racist imagination. This is something he concocted in his racist intellect, to blame it on African Americans when there's no data, no information whatsoever. He just made it up and then spewed it out of his mouth. Michael, what were some of your sentiments as the Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick's comments?
Well, to me, that is too powerful in office to play with numbers. He is a heartbeat away from being the governor of that state. And for him to say something like that and not blame the actual person, if there's any blame to be given, to the governor himself, who relaxed all supposed stringent measures that were at the state's wherewithal to do. For example, all of the massive spreading events, the mass gatherings in Texas, the encouraging them not to wear masks, the encouragement on not to take the test, on all the rumors about COVID just being not for real, and that you have the right to walk around in large gatherings, not wear a mask. That was being encouraged by the governor. So he went against measures that in surrounding states, they were at least trying to, and threaten city mayors, small city mayors, about whatever measures they were trying to do. Similar to what happened in Texas, happened in Florida and other places where the governors was putting their foot down. The same thing happened in Atlanta with the governor of Georgia, where if you try to save some people by implementing certain protocols, but they use the bully pulpit of the governor's office to say, no relaxed measures, everything is wide open. And then the lieutenant governor turns around and blames it on Black people. It doesn't make sense, and that only shows you that the sickness of white supremacy.
And once again, as we stated earlier, the statistics do not back up his accusation, and he has access to this information. But and as you stated, Michael, in his attempt to explain failed Republican policy, which contributed to the rise, to the surge that they're experiencing in Texas, as opposed to explaining why they decided to do what they did, he just said, blame it on Blacks, And here you have, in this state, over 70% of those infected, with those who tested positive for COVID, was white and Hispanics, and Blacks only represent 16%. And, yet he wants everyone to believe that 16% is responsible and the 70%, there's no responsibility there. But as you stated, Michael, it's just another manifestation of the racist white supremacist mentality that exists in the highest level of state office throughout this country. And it's always easy, it's always very simple to just blame it on Black folks, even when there's no justification, when there's no validation for these accusations. They don't care. They just put it out there, even though they know it's not true.
Right. They don't fear civil rights organizations. They don't fear a response from the federal government to debunk that, so they can just say what they want to about Black people and get away with it. It's no difference in what he's doing and what those so-called Karens are doing.
Right. And, it's funny that you said that there's no repercussions that he understands, being a white man in America, to making this false accusation as a very, regarding a very serious issue. When you talk about the hundreds of thousands that have died in America, the hundreds of thousands that have been the millions that have been malaffected by this particular disease, to point a finger and accuse, African Americans, for the rise or the surge in the state when it's not the surge, is very detrimental. It's very dangerous, and it's very, not only is it a racist game, but it's a very dangerous game. And when he had the opportunity to correct himself, when it was brought to his attention that the statistics do not back up his accusation, as opposing to changing his view or apologizing, he just doubled down because he's racist, he's a white supremacist, and he understands that being a racist and a white supremacist is supported throughout this nation by the power elite in this country, and that there will be no penalty for making this false accusation. All right. Also, it should be noted today, the FDA gave its full approval of the Pfizer vaccine. Previously, many of our viewers may know that the FDA gave emergency use authority to the vaccines after 2 months because they didn't have enough time to study, do the necessary research of the vaccines to validate its safety. Well, today they came out and they gave the Pfizer vaccine approval, the full approval, stating that it's safe. Now, many of us who've been observing this whole process, who watch, the news channels and the public being bombarded with pressure by politicians in particular, and some members of the scientific and the medical community, to force the FDA to hurry up and give full approval to this particular vaccine, because they feel that 89 million Americans who have thus far chosen not to be vaccinated would perhaps do so, or at least a large portion of that 89 million would do so if and when the FDA gives it full approval. Michael, do you think that there's been any pressure by the FDA to take this decision, or do you think it was, your normal line of investigation and observation that they gave it their full approval today?
Well, I'm fully aware and cognizant that you're asking a rhetorical question, but I'll go along with it and say, yes, there was pressure. You and I know full well on the average vaccines, whether they're good or not, you're talking about at least somewhere around 5 years it takes to get something like this approved. How can you approve this in months? Because there's some trepidation, some fear, trepidation around some people taking the vaccine. Consequently, there was an enormous amount of pressure. The same way people are being pressured on their jobs, being pressured in their social life, being pressured gyms, restaurants, theaters, everything one can imagine. You're being told you won't be able to do concerts, and they're offering people marijuana, dinners, sports tickets, all sorts of things. So yes, there's an enormous pressure for the FDA to approve.
And for those of us who follow the conversation, especially on fake news, CNN, we can, you pick up the point that they're saying, well, now that the FDA has given full authorization for the vaccine, then this ought to give not only the public, the government sector, but the private sector, the power and the authority to mandate that its employees or those patrons are fully vaccinated. They're claiming now that the FDA has made this position, that this gives their legal authority for practically, every store, every restaurant, every, employee, employer to mandate vaccinations, that employees or patrons no longer have a choice. Get vaccinated if you anticipate or if you expect to participate as a full citizen in this country's activity. As you stated, so many areas are being regulated. They've given out passes. This may sound funny, but who would ever thunk that that would happen in America in 2021, especially under Democratic leadership. But now, in order to participate fully as a citizen in so many areas, you have to show that you've been vaccinated. And many believe that as a result of this FDA ruling, that this gives the power, the legal authority for many institutions and areas to mandate that those who want to participate in their services are fully vaccinated.
Yes. Well, the thing is, and I don't really want to broach too far into the subject matter, but I will say for the record that everyone should have the right to make that decision. I'll leave it there. You should not be forced into it. And if it becomes a legal matter, it's gonna lose with your constitutional rights, on a constitutional level. You're gonna lose if you take that to court. That's why they're doing all of this without a legal remedy. They don't want this to go to federal courts and end up in the Supreme Court, because they know they wouldn't have a leg to stand on in forcing people to take that. And then if these numbers, if some real numbers that they're hiding right now in obscurity ever come out on the bad reactions to this vaccine, they're not gonna have a leg to stand up on in court, and including the FDA in approving Pfizer, because there are a lot of horror shows that one can display and illustrate on those who took their vaccine.
Well, Michael, assuming what you said is true, in New York, as you know, the governor, who just stepped down, Governor Cuomo, he put forth an edict saying that if you want to work for the government, you have to get vaccinated. The mayor of New York City, Bill Blasio, has stated that if you want to work for the city of New York, you must be vaccinated. He's given a September deadline. What would your explanation be for the silence? New York City is one of those cities which is unionized. It's known to have strong unions in all of these public arenas. How would you explain the silence of unions so far? I haven't heard whether it be the PBA. I'm not sure if it's COBRA, which is for the Department of Corrections, or in any of these large unions, the fire department. I haven't heard any of the unions protest against the demand of the mayor that their employees or their members be vaccinated. Now, we know when they took the job, it wasn't a part of their the requirements, to be a police officer. That wasn't one of the requirements that you take the vaccine. But now the mayor is saying they'll either take it or get tested or get fired. What do you think is the reason for the silence of so many unions in a city like New York and challenging it?
I think that truly this is part of a grand scheme. If you really want to speak frankly, this is bigger than anything we've ever seen. This involved governmental agencies, everybody from those that do the research to find out how to take diseases from animals and then translate that into a disease for human beings. These are people that have a lot of money invested. You can trace Dr. Fauci, Bill Gates, governmental organizations going back years. The president of Moderna and many others who conspired going back a couple of decades ago on this. This is a grand scheme of the highest order. I have to be very thankful to the irritated genie, Ayo Kamanthi, for this brother's delving into this so deeply, finding this out, to brother Darren Muhammad and brother Alatunji, who we were all together in Maryland this weekend at the Straight Black Pride Convention. And so much information came out. Robert Kennedy Jr. has a book out with so much information on COVID, it will blow your mind on how this thing developed over the decades and how this scheme came into existence. So they can call you a conspiracy theorist all they want. They can say all that they want, but see, they can't say that to Kennedy. They just keep him as silent, as quiet as they can, and really question anyone else. They're almost making you taking the vaccine as a patriotic effort. I don't know how they're doing it. They're wrapping it in the flag. Somehow it is un-American now not to be vaccinated because you're hurting yourself, your family, and all of America, the city, the state, the federal, the entire nation. They're somehow wrapping this in patriotism that is un-American, not only not to take the vaccine, but to speak against it, somehow questions your patriotism. And that's dangerous. When you reach that point, it's very dangerous.
Now, why do you think your unions have not yet offered a legal challenge to what the governor's mandated and the mayor's mandated?
I think they've been co-opted.
Okay.
I think all the major unions have been co-opted. Certainly, the unions you named are very powerful, and if their members were going to lose certain benefits or monies, not get the raises that they normally expect to get, they would fight. But they don't even know how to fight something that they don't know about. They're not well studied and researched when it comes into things that billionaires are doing to reduce the population all over the world. They are not privy to that information, nor are they interested in it. Because if something was affecting PBA members, you better believe they're gonna stand up for the union. The firefighters, COBA, sanitation, all of them will fight if it came down to that, especially for their jobs. But for something like this, you just indecisive and you don't know where to turn because they have raised the question to the point where your patriotism and your concern for your nation is in question now.
Seems very strange, very strange to me because regardless of how the union presidents or executive staff feel about the vaccine, whether or not they've taken it or not, you would think that they would respect those members of theirs who, for whatever reason, have not yet taken the vaccine, that they would protect their rights you know, whether it's the teachers unions, the nurses. There's a lot of nurses, a lot of people in the medical profession that has serious objections to the vaccine, and you will feel that there would be some, you know, even for people who have taken it and think that people should take it, but they maintain enough integrity to believe that a person, especially an adult, has a right to refuse to take the vaccine if they feel, for whatever reason. But you know, you don't see this being raised by none of the unions in New York City, which is a very heavy union city. But I want to talk about real quick, Michael, Laila Ali recently criticized vaccinations. The conversation and the level of pressure that is being applied, you know, to the highest level, from the President of the United States on down to governors and mayors throughout the country, are forcing, you know, and you can see I've seen this coming for months, but you can see that, you know, they're constantly tightening the belt. You can't do this. You can't do this. You can't do that. Now you can't do this, and that. And now tomorrow you can't do this. So they're really tightening the rope about what people, citizens who normally have the freedom of speech, the right to move around, to go to and fro, but that, you know, there's so much pressure being applied to demand that all adults take this vaccine. She's being criticized for her criticisms on the vaccine. You want to comment on that, Michael?
Yeah, well, Laila Ali, first of all, is a beautiful sister, a former boxing champion, and the daughter of the legendary Muhammad Ali himself. She knows how to take care of her body. She knows what training is. She knows what health and nutrition is. She had, at one time, was doing videos on health and nutrition and how to be in good shape. Beautiful sister. Now she is being attacked by the media and unseen forces for saying that you're supposed to build up your immune system. She is absolutely accurate. You must keep a strong immune system. Every time you step out of your door, or even if you stay in your house, you are bombarded by outside bacteria and all sorts of germs and diseases that your body, your cosmology has been adjusting to for the past few million years. If you were not accustomed to it, just a whiff of smoke from a vehicle would ill affect you, but you are so used to it and your body is attuned to fighting all these unseen particles in the air all day long. She is right. You have to have a strong immune system. She also talked about faith in God. When is that ever wrong? To have faith in God and do your best to have a strong immune system. Now, what they're saying is that she's remedial. They're saying she knows about fisticuffs, but she knows nothing about this disease. Now, they allow entertainers every day. They allow athletes every day to speak about the coronavirus, as long as they speak favorably about the vaccine.
Right.
Nobody called them remedial. Nobody said, let me read some of the quotes that they said about her. They said she has a platitude-driven conspiracy. She's a platitude-driven conspiracy theorist. They went on to say she has a far-fetched conjecture as facts. How do you level that type of criticism on a beautiful sister that's giving her opinion? But if you say anything raising questions, she said that this was man-made to harm people. Now, she didn't say it was man-made to harm Black people. I know she could have went there, but she chose just to say to harm people. She could have got even more specific if she wanted to. She is aware of some of this stuff that the irritated genie is talking about. She is aware of some of these things that Darren Muhammad and others are talking about these meetings that went on for decades, about Fort Detrick, and how when the funds and you had questions about from virologists and all of them about all these tests and diseases that they were doing, that they had to send it to Wuhan. It started right here in the United States. And so she knows that. Many of us know that. And the Irritated Genie has a book, a DVD on it, COVID-19. If you know what I know, you better get it. You better get the COVID-19 DVD where he exposes so much of that. You have white professors, white doctors, all telling you that this vaccine is not a vaccine. It's telling you what this protein that's injected in your system, what it does, and how it confuses those elite killer cells in your body that kill the enemies that come into your body, and how it ill affects them, and they get confused and will not follow the orders that they normally would do to kill foreign bacteria that come into your body. They will lay dormant now and not attack the very things that it's normally supposed to attack. So they can talk about her and say she's good at fisticuffs, but and they can call her all type of conspiracy theorists all they want. But the fact is, if she speaks out against the vaccine and tell you to build up your immune system and have faith in God, suddenly she's the bad guy for saying that. And yet these athletes that are handed a script, read the script, they're not being chastised at all because they're speaking in favor of what Fauci and the CDC wants them to say.
And not only that, but you can tell that, where they try to automatically discredit somebody by going the word conspiracy, because call them conspiracy theorists, when people actually not, they're speaking facts as they understand it. I don't understand why. Well, I understand why, but if you look at Fauci, not only his relationship with the Wuhan laboratory and their investigation, but initially Fauci's discredited any accusation that this virus was started in the laboratory. Initially, he outright said no. But now that there's an investigation going on, and more of the investigators or scientists are saying that there's a good possibility that this vaccine started in the laboratory, now he's backed away from his initial dogmatic statement saying it's not. If you look at Fauci in the initial stages of the virus, he said that it wasn't necessary for children to be vaccinated. You remember only seniors and older folks.
Right.
He said that children, because their immune system is developing, it appears as if they have a natural mechanism to fight the virus. Today, they're saying that children ought to be vaccinated. Matter of fact, they want mass vaccination of children. Initially, Fauci said that the vaccination, that people who are vaccinated are an end to the virus. In other words, that once you become vaccinated, you can't spread it. That's what he said. It's documented. He said, look it up. Fauci said that vaccinated people are an end to the virus. But now we find out that that's not true. And if you remember, there was a time when he said that vaccinated people no longer have to wear masks. This is when he was opening up. He encouraged federal authorities to open up the society and said people who are vaccinated can go around. They don't need a mask because they're an end to this virus. But now you see that they had to walk back that. He said that vaccinated people have a minimal amount of the degrees in their nostrils. But now we find out that vaccinated and unvaccinated people have the same amount of the disease who show to be positive. Fauci said that when he reluctantly had to admit that a booster shot was necessary, if you remember, when the companies came out and said, yo, a booster shot is necessary, and he got mad at them, called them and said, yo, let's have a private meeting. Don't tell the public this, let's meet and let us talk about it. He said a booster shot is not necessary. Then he said a booster shot is necessary, but only for those who have compromised immune system. Then less than a couple of days later, he said, no, everybody ought to be. So I'm just bringing up, when you look at what our sister says and they discredit her, they just dispel what she has to say. If you look at the contradictions that Fauci have made since the beginning of this virus, and I know this is a new virus, and I know there's changes because viruses change. That's just the nature of a virus. But so you can't discredit somebody like a sister Ali because you disagree with a statement or two that she makes, and just totally dismiss or scientifically explain that there's some justification. And Dr. Fauci, who's supposed to be the professional and the authority of the vaccine, was contradicted himself since day one of this particular vaccine. Now, if it's just, natural, because like I said, there's many changes in the vaccine, and that's fine. But, the vaccinated people don't need to wear masks. Week later, vaccinated people do need a mask. One day, vaccinated people are into the coronavirus. Next day, no, they're not in. They can catch it, they can spread it. So, I mean, who really has more credibility here?
Well, they know full well. First of all, Noel, I want to give you credit because you said months ago that there's going to be a booster shot.
Yes, sir.
You said that months ago, brother. Now, I don't know how you knew it, but you did say it. And now booster shots are here. Right. So not only that, I would just say that they know full well on people that go into the ICU units and that are on respirators, most of them die. Now, I don't know what's on, I don't know what they're doing with Jesse Jackson as well as his wife, Jacqueline, because they both are hospitalized at this time. And I don't know what condition they're in, but they are in the hospital and they know full well that they're trying to promote remdesivir that costs well over $30,000 that they will receive and giving you that. I think it's something like 38,000. And they know that hydrochloroquine, which is about $30, that with the quinine and zinc, things like that, will eradicate, for the most part, COVID-19. But there's no money to be made in that because it's something simple you can go to the store and get right now. So they know full well what they're doing, and it's a part of a grand scheme. And they're coming in a way that's so different. And that's the beauty of Brother Ayo Kamanthi, the irritated genie. In his speech this past weekend in Maryland, he said, this is different. This is different from the Agent Orange. This is different from the smallpox vaccine the smallpox blankets that they gave the Native Americans and devastated Native Americans with that, because even in the midst of a war, gifts can be exchanged between enemies when there's respect present. So they gave these Native Americans those blankets, and then out of nowhere, they started coughing and getting sick. They never saw it coming. That was chemical warfare. That was biological warfare. So whether it was Agent Orange used on the Vietnamese, whether it was the Tuskegee experiment used on us, so many things. The white man has always used technology to kill. Using a gun where a single bullet can kill wasn't enough. He had to work on bombs that can kill hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands all at one time. So this is even more dangerous. He brought Ebola to Africa. Africa didn't have Ebola. He invented the H1N1. That was done by Fauci. The AIDS. Fauci was involved in AIDS. All of this stuff that's man-made. Fauci was always the go-to guy, a central figure in all this. He's a central figure in this COVID-19, and anybody that says that is written off or silenced one way or the other. But the facts are he's involved with this. This is an harmful thing to Black people. And for Laila Ali, the beautiful sister that she is, to care enough to put this out in the public, Laila Ali is well off. She does not have to concern herself with social issues. She is doing well enough to live the good life. So for her to take the time to point out, to have the faith in God and to build your immune system, which any healthcare professional would tell you to do, build that immune system, and for them to attack her like that and not to attack Fauci, it just shows you the hypocritical nature of treating your friend as an enemy and your enemy as a friend.
And I know what you meant, that's what any health professional should tell you to do. You know, the arguments, you know, I don't think it's an argument that doctors are the biggest drug pushers in the country. You know, anyone who would dismiss a person working on their immune system, developing or strengthening their immune system. This is your body's system, which fights off all kinds of diseases. You know, fortunately, the Creator has given us an immune system that does so much. Anyone who would just dismiss that, you know, is crazy. You know, for a foreign substance to be introduced to your body by suggesting that is, you know, a better way to go. So, you know, Dr. Sebi proved in court the value of working on your immune systems to defeat so many diseases. I mean, he cured. And the reason why I say cured, because he was brought to court by New York State and he cured cancer, he cured AIDS, he cured diabetes, you know, all forms of cancer. I think 70 patients had to come in and testify with their conventional doctor records to show that they were cured from these diseases. And he had a fixation on repairing your immune system and eating certain foods and taking certain herbs to strengthen your body's defense mechanism. So, I mean, that shouldn't just be dismissed. I'm not against some you know, people taking certain products or drugs to assist them, but anyone to just totally dismiss a logical person's decision to strengthen or to talk about strengthening their immune system as a part of the cure for this or the defeat of this, you know, I think is unfortunate.
Right, and doctors are not allowed, and I know this sounds crazy, but doctors are not allowed to treat you with herbs or natural remedies. They have to recommend drugs. Every cure for your body has to be done with drugs as far as a doctor is concerned. Now, if that doctor is a part of your family, he'll do something off the record for you. But on the record, he is going to write a prescription. Off the record, he knows that full well that your medicine cabinet is your kitchen. That 70, 80% of all that you do is not gonna matter unless you do that in the kitchen. Once you do that, you can rid yourself of diabetes in 30 days, literally almost everybody. Very rare cases require medication. Almost 90%, 95% of all people that have diabetes can cure it within 30 days with their diet. But the doctor's not gonna tell you that. He's not allowed to tell you that, whether he likes you or not. Only a doctor that's a member of your family will tell you how to cure diabetes by how you eat.
And the problem with a lot of the drugs, you know, that they prescribe to their patients, you know, these are synthetic drugs. They're not natural. They're not food. So when you introduce it to your body, your body has a difficult time deciding what to do with it because it can't break it down and utilize it as it would normally food products, natural food products. These are synthetic materials that are not food. So you have a lot of people who take these medications for a prolonged period of time, and they may not die as a result of diabetes, but they'll just die as a result of their kidneys failing or their livers failing, because their kidneys and liver work so long for so many years to try to process these synthetic drugs, and it's just at a point where it gets fatigued and it starts breaking down and not functioning as it used to be, as it used to. But the final note, my final comment on the coronavirus, you know, what has to be noted is that people who take the vaccine are getting sick, are going to the hospital and some are dying. Fortunately, according to them, not many, but we don't want people who get vaccinated to have this false safety mechanism. You still should go out and wear a mask. You should still practice social distancing. You should still wash your hands whenever you go to and fro. And everyone should be working on their immune system to make it a little stronger. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing negative in that. There's no harm in that, even if you don't have corona, if you're vaccinated or not vaccinated. But, don't be fooled. There's many vaccinated people across the country that are being reinfected with this coronavirus. And one of the reasons why they're talking about a booster is because this vaccine, if you want to call it that, it gets weakened after a number of months. And I'm going to make another prediction. This is not going to be the only booster that people are going to be advised to take. I predict within another 6, 7 months, they're going to say, another booster shot is necessary. So that's my prediction, because they're finding out that after about 6 or 7 months, it's not as strong, according to their definition of the strength when you first take it, however unfortunate. But we're hoping for the best. Trust me personally, I'm not hoping that, some of the things that people predict will happen. I'm hoping it doesn't happen. I'm hoping that people who have taken it will not have any long-term medical deficiencies or effect. I'm hoping people who don't take it will not catch corona and strengthen their immune system. So we're not hoping for doom and gloom for the American citizens. We just want the best for everybody and their families. Any more comments on COVID?
No, I think you covered it all. I'll just say that the spike protein in that vaccine is a weapon. It's a biological weapon, and it cannot be disputed. They know it full well. That's why they're dismissing anybody that says otherwise.
And, you pulled me back into another point. I mean, we cannot ignore also the fact that these people have an emphasis. They have documentations where they talk about population control and that we need to decrease in the tune of billions of people of the population of the planet Earth. There's documented material produced by some people, supported by some of these individuals, like the Bill Gates Foundation, many claim, that emphasizing a deduction in the population. So, when you add that to the direction this conversation is taken, and forcing people all over the globe to take this vaccine, some people start to put one plus one together, but time will tell. All right, there's another story you wanted to discuss, Michael. There's Nicole Poole Franklin in Iowa. Some may remember, this is a white female who attempted to run down 3 children, 2 of them African-American, with her car, tried to kill them. And she admitted upon her arrest that she did it for the sole reason that they were African-American, and then it was 1 Latino child. She was recently sentenced to a lengthy jail sentence. Michael, update our viewing audience about this story.
Yeah, let me just say briefly that her rationale for trying to run down a 12-year-old little child and 14-year-old, his brother, little child, Black children, was because she viewed them as ISIS, and that if she didn't take them out, one day they might try to take her out. So here, she's viewing little boys as growing up to be terrorists, and that's, I'm just using that term because from my opinion, I don't know what if ISIS is terrorists or whether that's a manifestation of people that are engaged in war making to sell arms or what have you. But she viewed them as a potential enemy down the road. And she also tried to run over a 14-year-old Latina little girl by saying that they're taking over the country. So it only shows you how sick a white supremacist mind is, that she could see in a little girl the takeover and the loss of this country, and 2 little boys that they're like ISIS and they need to be taken out before they take her out. She's sick. And this was all done in that environment and atmosphere of the Trump administration and all those years with Trump and all these cases popping up all over. Everybody was doing their so-called little part to make things uncomfortable for Black folks.
Right. And I believe she was sentenced to 25 years, Michael?
She pleaded guilty and got 25. She should never see the light of day. 25 years is not enough for someone that views children as the enemy. She should have a life sentence, but unfortunately, she pleaded out and got just 25 years.
All right, now, so our last story is going to be Rahm Emanuel. Some may remember Rahm Emanuel. He was on the Barack Obama administration. He left there to become the mayor of Chicago, did absolutely nothing. Recently, it was mentioned that he's going to be appointed ambassador by President of the United States, Michael.
Yeah, just want to say real quickly that he's going to be the U.S. ambassador to Japan, and this should never happen because he is not fit for any governmental agency or any governmental job. He provided air cover to the Chicago Police Department that killed Laquan McDonald, and he personally protected police officer Van Dyke by hiding the video and keeping it from public view for over a year, and fought to keep it under wraps until it was a federal judge that had to step in and demand that the Chicago Police Department release that video, which showed Van Dyke savagely killing Laquan McDonald while he was walking away. He emptied his magazine into Laquan McDonald, and Rahm Emanuel saw that right after it happened and decided to keep that from sight. And by the way, he became the mayor of Chicago illegally because they wrote an exemption. The Justice Department under Obama made an exemption so he was allowed to run. He shouldn't have been able to run, and he shouldn't be holding a governmental post now because he participated in the cover-up of murder, which is a crime to me.
It's a crime to everybody. I mean, the officer murdered our brother and lied about it. Rahm Emanuel, as mayor, and his police commissioner had the video. They seen the video. They chose to not release the video, although the family demanded, and the family attorney demanded that the video be released. They held it because of election day. He didn't want to release it until after election day, after he was reelected. And our President Biden, who claims to respect, and he was put in office predominantly by the African American community, he thinks we have a very short memory, so he can care less. He don't think there's going to be any repercussions over this decision. And for the most part, looking at most Black Democrats, there's not going to be any repercussions. But anyways,
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. The people who wanted to see him in office, Bill Clinton, David Axelrod, James Clyburn, Gregory Meeks, and Gregory Meeks boasted that he has talent and he's effective as a leader. All of them know full well what he did, but they're all hailing his appointment.
Right. All right, brothers and sisters, we have to understand Black politicians are one of the most dangerous members of our community. And not only Black politicians in this country, but on the African continent, many of them conspire with white corporations to disenfranchise their nations and their people. Just like here, Black politicians are used by the white power authority to control the Black community. We have to understand the dangerous position that Black politicians play and the role that they play in our disenfranchisement by supporting consistently our enemies. But closing comments, Michael.
Just big ups to Straight Black Pride for their outstanding convention this weekend. Black man, Black woman, protect the Black child, accept your own, and in the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, be yourself. Okay, on behalf of Community Cop, we'd like to thank our engineers and producers, Veronica Kitt, Nat Woods, Sheila Berry, Big D. We'd like to thank you, our viewing audience. See you next Tuesday. Knowledge is power. And we salute Julian Harper. Many Community Cop miss him. Lenny Lou, I love you. Kitty Cat, I love you. See you next Tuesday, family. Peace.